Hi and welcome back to our channel and this video about hybrids versus irons. I mean, they've been around for a while, hybrids, so this isn't a new question, but I'm going to show you today everything you need to know to make this decision for your own bag, why they perform slightly differently, when one is better than the other, and also deal with the subject of which part of the bag are we thinking about putting a hybrid in. Really long end, long iron end, or somewhere to replace your middle irons even, because there's very different results when we start to think about them on those terms. So let's have a look at the advantages of a hybrid over an iron. Well, for a start, this larger head, almost like a fairway wood shape, allows the manufacturers to have a wider sole, and the wider sole means that they can move the centre of gravity further away from the face. This gives us a bigger sweet spot, so it's more forgiving in terms of how much ball speed it'll keep on off-centre hits. Having a sweet spot that's further away from the face will also have the effect of easier to get the ball airborne. It increases the launch angle and it also increases the backspin, so you're going to get a higher flying shot with a hybrid versus an iron. The width of sole also plays a big part in how easy they are to hit in terms of strike. So for example, a shot that was going to be slightly heavy with a hybrid, the sole will generally skid along the surface, pick up the shot, and generally give you a better result than if you miss-hit an iron by the same amount. The front edge tends to catch and dig in a little bit more. So those of you who've hit hybrids a lot will probably agree with me to say they're a bit more forgiving and easier to hit, and you can hit it from poorer lies for the same reason. The long grass does not get tied around the neck as much because it gets flattened by the sole of the club as it goes through. One of the other advantages is that because of the size of the head, the same technology that they use in drivers has been able to be used in hybrids. So you get a slight trampoline effect on the face. So even though my 4-iron and this hybrid have the same loft, the ball speed off a hybrid is significantly more, as I'll show you in a minute, and therefore it generally goes further than the corresponding iron in the set. So they all sound like huge advantages. So what are the downsides? Well, if I just move out the way and show you the picture on the backboard there, look at the face of the hybrid and you'll see that it's not completely flat like the iron. It's actually got curvature on it here, a bit like your driver has. We call it roll and bulge of the face. Now this is designed to help you and be more forgiving, and it produces gear effect, which I won't go into, but it basically straightens up off-centre hits, particularly off the toe of the club. So if you strike the ball off the toe of the club, normally that should produce cut spin and it disappears off to the right, but the gear effect on the ball actually turns that, straightens it up, and can actually create a hook shot when the club face is open. So you'd think that would be a good idea, and it will be for those of you who have left the face open inadvertently. A little bit of draw spin is a real treat. But if you were trying to play a cut shot deliberately on the golf course with a hybrid and you happen to catch the ball off the toe and you saw the ball draw, that's a real bit of negative feedback for the shot that you were trying to play. So we tended to find that good players in the early days tried hybrids out but felt they didn't have as much control over a hybrid as they had for a long iron, for example. The flatter face of the long iron will generally send the ball exactly where you've put it, which the stronger player kind of likes the feedback from. So let's have a look at the results of the series of shots I hit with both the 4-iron and the hybrid, same loft, don't forget, and just show you the difference in the type of shot that you can expect from these two clubs. So as you can see, the differences are quite substantial. Looking just at the trajectory of the shot in the top left corner, there's a very big difference between two clubs which have the same loft on them. The ball speed in the first column of numbers there is significantly higher with the hybrid, most of which is to do with the head design, but there's also a bit of a shaft length issue which we'll come onto in a second. The launch angle is higher, as we predicted it would be, and the backspin is significantly higher. So in carry distance terms, we've got a 13-yard difference between two clubs with the same loft. So they're not doing exactly the same job, and they're not getting to the same point on the golf course by the same flight either. And if we look at the top right image there of the dispersion, this kind of backs up what we're talking about the shape of the face and the gear effect. The dispersion on the hybrid stretches from long left to short right. So whenever I hit it out the toe and I got a bit of excess draw spin, it goes further and it goes wider, whereas the 4-iron dispersion is what I would predict is much tighter. So we're beginning to see a few differences in why you might choose one club over the other. Here's the club data for the same series of shots, and we can see that even the efficiency column, the first one, they were struck relatively the same, slightly better strike off the hybrid, which we would expect. The club head speed is nearly 5 miles an hour faster with a hybrid. Now this is just purely due to shaft length. They make them 2 inches longer than their corresponding irons. This is obviously the supplier's quick way of giving you more distance. But if you think of the difference between your 6-iron and your pitching wedge in length, that's the same. So we're talking about a longer shafted club, can be harder to be accurate with. If we go whiz across to the far side of the screen on the angle of attack, the last column, you'll see that the shorter shafted iron results in a steeper angle of attack than a hybrid. This is obviously common sense. The longer the shaft, the flatter the swing, the shallower the impact. So for those of you who swing quite upright or like a steep angle of attack into the ball, iron is going to be a more consistent choice for you than a hybrid. But we're going to give up some distance because hybrid does outperform iron in terms of distance and spin and launch. So we were going to talk about hybrids in different parts of the bag. So we can see from the differences in trajectory there that if you were thinking of having a hybrid or a 2-iron, for example, you're going to be really making that decision based on the type of flight that you want. 2-iron, when you hit it most of the time, is on a small tee peg. You're hitting it as a tee shot. So if I was playing in a windy or links type conditions, I'd want the ball to be flying lower. It'll run further when it lands, and I'm not going to get as much gear effect off a 2-iron as I am from a hybrid, so I should be able to shape my shots a little better. Then we get to the 4-iron where I did all the testing, and again, some of you might be thinking, well, I don't use 4-iron, never be able to use 4-iron, in which case that's a fairly easy decision. Go for a hybrid, bit more distance, bit of a higher flight. But also there's quite a lot of you that are thinking about or already got some hybrids in the middle of the set. And this is where we have a slightly different hybrid on the market, and I've just been hitting it there. This is actually a 7 hybrid, as you can see there, and it's a direct replacement for a 7-iron. In fact, this made by Mizuno. I don't know if any other manufacturers do this, but they will offer you 4, 5, 6 or 7 hybrid, but with exactly the same shaft in that your irons have got. Same length, same construction. So this is a steel shaft because that's what I have in my irons. It's exactly the same shaft I have in my irons. And now that we can reduce the shaft length to the same, and we've got more loft on the club, we find that the differences in flight are almost completely negated. It's just a different version of a 7-iron with a bigger head and easier to hit. So in a way, we're getting all the benefits of a hybrid: bigger sweet spot, easier to hit, easier to get airborne, better out of poorer lies, but without the difference in flight. So if you were going to think about replacing some of your middle irons with hybrids, I would suggest going for a manufacturer where we can actually get them to match in with your 8, 9 and wedge of the same set, so there's not that big difference in the middle of the bag. Let's have a look at when I hit my 7-iron versus this 7 hybrid with the same shaft in at the results and just show you. Okay, so you can quite clearly see here the trajectories of the two shots are almost the same. The launch angle was slightly higher off my 7-iron, and that's because I could only get a hybrid within 2 degrees of my 7-iron, so they would be almost identical. Spin rate's a little higher off the hybrid as we'd expect, but you can see from the dispersion image in the top right there that the dispersion is slightly wider with a hybrid compared to an iron, just for the reasons we said earlier in terms of the design of the face. But this might not be a bad thing for your game in terms of getting some extra height and spin and easiness to hit, and you might be willing to sacrifice a little bit of dispersion. So in summary, I hope that's helped you understand a little bit more about hybrids versus irons, and I think most of your decisions will depend on whether or not you like a steeper angle of attack, in which case irons are going to be better for you, or whether you like sweeping the ball off the ground. Hybrids are going to be better for your type of swing. In terms of their actual playability, I think we can all agree that hybrids outperform irons on nearly every count, which is why they've been so popular. But a lot of the decision that you'll have will depend on which part of the bag you're thinking of going for a hybrid. If you're trying to replace your 2-iron, for example, or thinking of 2-iron as an option, this will almost certainly be dependent on what type of flight that you're after and whether you shape the ball a lot off the tee. If you're after a lower, more penetrating flight for windy days or linksy conditions, or you like shaping the ball a lot, I would recommend a 2-iron over a hybrid. This ball's going to be teed up most of the time, so the benefits of the strike really won't be as significant in this part of the bag. If you're thinking about 4-iron or 5-iron replacements, the sort of long end of the bag, I think hybrid here pretty much wins out. It's easier to hit, goes higher, you can hit it from poorer lies. And so I would say almost certainly, if you haven't already, experiment with a hybrid instead of a 4 or 5-iron, if you don't strike those clubs in the bag particularly well. And then if you're thinking about hybrids further up the bag in the shorter clubs, the 7, really good idea. You're getting nearly all the benefits of the hybrid over an iron with very little penalty whatsoever in terms of difference in flight. All I would say is try and get some professional advice. I'm happy to do it for you, where you can get the shaft length and the shaft construction exactly the same as all the other irons in your bag. That's really important for consistency, so you can predict how far it's going to go and hopefully reduce your scores by hitting those longer approaches into the green a little bit more accurately. Just for interest, for my bag, my decision has been basically I own a 2-iron and a long hybrid, and I tend to put the 2-iron in for when I go on links trips, but predominantly I hit hybrid in that end of the bag. But I also have a 4-iron at 22 degrees, and then my hybrid is at 19 degrees. So I've separated them out in terms of length. I can use my hybrid when I look at a lie and it should be a 4-iron, but I don't fancy it. I can then come off my hybrid and hit a soft hybrid, and I'll generally try and cover all my bases basically in terms of having the playability of a hybrid, but the accuracy of a long iron. It also helps, don't forget, for those low punch out shots, which occasionally we all have to play. Hybrids are not too good for those. It's better to have a steep faced iron on those type of punch out shots. So my 4-iron unfortunately comes in handy for those shots every so often. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Again, if you need any advice specifically for you, you know where to find us. You can email us at the current time, or when we get back open, just pop your head in and have a chat, and we're always happy to help you. Until then, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.